So Justin, tell us about this new operating system, Windows 7. What do you think?
Well, Chris, it's funny you asked that because it's actually been one of the best operating systems since Windows 95 was released. There were over 8 million downloads and actually 16 million installations. So the public have actually taken it by storm. The beta phases all the way up through the RTM phase, which of course October 22nd was sort of the big bang when it all was let loose to the public. And it's been a phenomenal take-up on the operating system.
So, what do you think which are the best features that this operating system has?
That's quite interesting. Windows 7 itself has so many new features and actually was built on what people wanted. One specific feature really to pick out would be impossible. There's loads of different ones, and again, I think that's why everybody's taking it up, is because it is a completely different way that the operating system works now. So one of my favorite features, of course, is problem steps recorder. As an IT professional, daily we run into troubles, and in the past we used to have to rely on the end user to call us up and explain everything that was broken with their machine. And as you and I are both aware, being IT professionals, an end user calls up, and usually if you ask them what's wrong, they'll say it's broken or it doesn't work. You ask them, have you tried turning it off and back on again? That's the first step. Have you checked to make sure all the cables are plugged in? And inevitably they say, yeah, it's just broke. With Problem Steps Recorder, what you can do is run this simple little utility that's built into the operating system. From that point forward, it captures all the clicks, all the actions of the program, and all the actions of the end user. So maybe they were right-clicking instead of left-clicking. Maybe they weren't typing in the password in the right way. And at the end, it actually captures a diagnostical information about the operating system, zips it all up, and then they can post that to you in an email, put it on a memory stick, or get it to you in some way, shape, or form so that you can actually see what they're doing in a more easy way rather than them just saying, it's broke.
Yeah, we all know that the user, when he's calling you, he's telling you, my computer is broken, that's all, and you have no idea of what's happening there. You know, I've had something like 2 or 3 computers, laptops, and desktops in my home, and I've implemented a feature called Homegroup. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Yeah,
Homegroup, it's actually a new feature of Windows 7. And like you said, what it's targeted for are the people who use PCs at home. So inevitably, you've got a music store at home, you've got videos, and you want to share things with your family, or like you and I who have 3 different laptops in 3 different rooms, you don't want to have a file server. So what Homegroups does is essentially creates a domain-like environment just as a regular workstation itself. So you pick Homegroup, simply click on the Start button, and one of the new features, obviously, of Windows 7 is that search is inbuilt into the Start menu. So you type in Homegroup, and it goes through a wizard that asks you, do you want to share printers, do you want to share files, pictures, network music, gives you an authentication key or a password, essentially, and then what you can do from that point forward is simply using the master browser list on the network, type in that password, and you've got access to files. Again, you can lock it down per file, or you can share whatever you'd like, just as if it were on a domain, but of course it's sharing it through your home group, as it were.
Yeah, just as you said, you do not have to type passwords anymore in home. You do not have to explain to everybody how he can access files, pictures, music, and so on. What about the fun stuff of Windows 7? What about the desktop experience that gives you?
The desktop experience, one of the neat things that I like is themes. Everybody likes to have a picture of their cat, their dog, their loved one on the background. And yeah, okay, after a while it's nice, but as people's minds change, you'd like the desktop to change. One of the new things introduced into Windows 7 is themes. So what you can do is actually, every region has its own theme, and as days progress, more and more themes are being released. But essentially what it is it's a group of backgrounds, a group of sounds and everything else. And on a timer, I've got mine set to every 5 minutes actually, the background changes. So it gives you a different background automatically every 5 minutes. You can choose from one background, you can choose from 100 backgrounds, you can make your own theme, and again, you can share your themes with people. And like I said, the actual user community are finding that themes can be created, shared, and people are starting to experience the ability to share and collaborate with each other on these new themes and backgrounds and sounds.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about the aero effects, about all the good desktop experience we have? How is the footprint on the computer?
Interesting you should mention aero. It actually came out in Vista, but it was very memory intensive, as we're all aware. And Vista gave us quite a few learning experiences. Aero in Windows 7 has been completely transformed, has a lot less of a memory footprint, as the entire operating system actually does. And what it does is it allows you sort of a smooth transitional experience through whatever you're doing. The three main facets of Aero that everybody starts to see now in Windows 7 is Aero Preview, which again you can hover over any icon down in the system tray, pops up a little Aero Preview, and if you actually mouse over the Aero Preview, it will show you that position it is on the window. You've got Aero Snap, which if you take a window, drag it to the left, it will snap it to the left half of the window. Take a window to the right, it'll snap it to the right half of the window. Drag it straight to the top, it'll maximize it. And then you've got one of my favorite ones, which at first I didn't really find a liking to, but then once I started to use it, it's really good, and it's called Aero Shake. It's like a wet dog coming out of the sea. What you do is you grab the window, you shake it, and like a wet dog getting all the water away from itself, all of the windows disappear. However, if you rewind that and take the window again to start shaking it, everything comes back. So as if the dog were to get wet again somehow.
Yeah, I like that also, yes.
Yeah, and then of course, the other thing about Aero, what they've done is the minimize desktop button, which used to be down in the bottom left-hand corner, as everybody was aware of, and it was a bit of a strange icon, has actually been sent down to the bottom right corner now, and just next to the system tray where the time is, so you can actually hover over that. What it will do is invisibilize all your windows, for a better sense of terms, and show you where all your open windows are, but not actually show you the content. So it's sort of an Aero peek onto the desktop.
Yeah. So these days everybody's talking about the green IT. What new features do we have on Windows 7 about power consumption?
Power consumption is a big thing. Not only is everybody looking, like you said, for green IT, but everybody wants more for less, really. And the battery life for Windows 7 has phenomenally increased, and the reason it's phenomenally increased is due to the decrease in power consumption and the necessary resources for utilization of the machine. As you run up Windows 7, again, like I said, you've got the ability to put it in standby and hibernate mode. Those come out a lot quicker, and again, the amount of resource that it uses. I've got a little netbook. When we met the other night in the hotel, I saw you have a little netbook. I can use that for 6.5 hours now because of the power consumption. In so much as that there's also a little utility that you can use, not a lot of people know it, called Power CFG that's built in. Of course, you have to bring up an elevated command prompt in order to run that, but if you run Power CFG with the /question, there's loads and loads of different reports that are run and help you tweak that machine even better to get more performance and, like you said, be greener and more economically friendly.
And what about the new media features?
Media features, that's quite interesting. I come from the UK, obviously. I don't know if in Greece you have Sky Satellite, but in the UK, Windows Media Center now has different features built into it. And without having to have a dish on the side of my house, without having to have a set-top box in my lounge, I can actually use Windows Media Center, which is actually an underutilized tool that people don't know a lot about, and watch my Sky subscription with my digital broadband. So no longer do I need the dish on the side of the house. Like I said, I don't need to have the box. Forget having to worry about losing the controller like I'm always doing down the side of the settee or wherever it's at. I can watch my satellite subscription on demand in Windows Media Center, as well as sharing all the other features and facets. And then, of course, using Windows Media Center, going back to the Homegroup idea that we just discussed earlier, what I can do is I can stream from one machine to another. So if I've got an Xbox, if I've got a Windows 7 machine, and I've got one of the new tellies that will actually allow wireless connectivity to it, I can open my laptop in the lounge, send wirelessly the Windows Media Center player to my telly in my kitchen while I'm cooking dinner, or while someone else is cooking dinner for me, because I don't cook very well.
Yeah, sure. And we have to say that Windows Media Center is included in almost all versions.
That's correct. Like I said, a lot of people don't actually know a lot about Windows Media Center, and like I said, it's actually there. People know about Windows Media Player, but again, that's really only just a little component of Windows Media Center. And once you get Windows Media Center open and start utilizing it, start to find all the features and facets that it has, like I said, I can't live without it now.
Okay, great. So let's talk about some business features.
Business features
of Windows 7.
Okay. One of the most interesting business features that I've found, not only is it in Windows 7, but you have to have Server 2008 R2, is direct access. A lot of people have VPN connections, they're on the road all the time, and more of the workforce is becoming mobile and remote. Traditionally in the past, we'd issue a laptop as an IT professional, and you'd see it 2 years later. It wouldn't have up-to-date antivirus, it wouldn't have patches. Users would have installed things because we had to make them local administrators, group policies out of date, and we were lucky if they VPN'd into the office for long enough for us to even see that machine. With direct access, using IP version 6 technology to read underneath an IPv4 to v6 over the public internet, what we can do is that machine can always be on our corporate network. So now what we've got is the ability to remotely manage any device at any given time. So if I've got a laptop, I go into Starbucks, for example, because I'm traveling, I'm in the airport, flip open my laptop, turn it on, without having to know my VPN details, without having to dig out my smart card, without having to have any credentials whatsoever, because my device is a trusted device on the corporate network. Once I get an internet connection, it automatically creates that tunnel for me, allows me to be managed as if I was on the corporate network. So now I can get new group policies, now the corporate can manage me, they can send me down updates, and I'm actually a managed device. So not only, like I said, am I going to have access to internal resources, but the internal IT department's going to be able to better manage and control their resources and know where things are, because, like I said, inevitably, in the past, whenever we used to issue laptops, we would hope that 2 years later that asset would come back to the office and plug itself in, or we can find it somehow. Now it's actually ET's going to phone home every time it gets an internet connection, whether the end user knows it or not, and it's all streamlined and created, transparently to the user.
Okay, this is great, and there is also the VPN reconnection feature.
That's correct, yeah. So if you drop your VPN, or if you don't have direct access, because again, in order to get direct access working, like I said, one of the biggest sort of hurdles you have to overcome is the IPv6 on your internal corporate network, and as well using Server 2008 R2. So like you said, you've got VPN Reconnect with Windows 7. If it drops a connection, it'll automatically reconnect without having to know anything in the background.
Great. So what do you think about a feature called Windows XP mode?
Windows XP mode, interesting. One of the things people have complained about, and one of the reasons people stayed with XP as it was, as you and I are familiar with being MVPs, is they've said that they don't want to have to transition their line of business applications in order to work on Vista, create shims, go through all the difficulties and everything else. So we've seen a longer life cycle for XP. There are still going to be some of those applications, and to redevelop some of them for certain businesses is going to be impossible. Sure, we want them to move to Windows 7, but what's happened is we've had this utility called Windows XP mode, which essentially runs a virtual machine in the background, allows the user a seamless interaction into this application, which would actually run in XP mode. Again, it's sort of a stopgap for those businesses that want to upgrade. It's not something that's really an enterprise feature, but it does allow people who say, well, I've got that single XP application that I need to run, to install, to utilize, and that's what's stopping me from going to Windows 7. Of course, there's also MedV if you need to have XP on a more globalized scale. But again, that XP mode allows you to use a single XP application on a single desktop. Streamlined, completely click, and everything going forward, it has become more wizard-driven, and you can install XP using XP mode in minutes.
Okay, great. Is there any other feature that you would like to remind us?
Well, like I said, there's so many different features of Windows 7, it's amazing. One of the interesting things is that not only is it easy for the IT pro to use, but it's easy for the end user to use. Last week I was visiting the United States and I saw my mother. I installed it on her laptop, and from an end user perspective, we always quite often as IT professionals say, I have to support my parents, or I have to support someone else. My mom uses it, she likes it, and she hasn't had any troubles with it so far. So as an IT user, if I know my mom can use it, just about anybody else can, really. Is there anything you like in particular about it or have questions about?
I liked very much how easy it is to connect to a wireless network. You just see all the wireless networks that are around you, and you just click and you can connect to it. That's how it is.
That's quite interesting you mentioned that, because when you connect to networks, Windows 7 has a feature that not a lot of people are aware of, that is actual network location awareness. If you connect to your wireless network at home and you have a printer at home, let's call it home printer for ease of sake, and you connect to a wireless network at your office, it's actually going to know the difference between those two wireless networks, and it will automatically for you switch between the printers. So you don't have to, in the days of old, oh right, I'm at the office now, I need to set my default printer as my office printer, or choose it from the drop-down menu. Oh, now I'm at home, I need to set my printer as my home printer. It will automatically, knowing these networks for you, differentiate, and as well, like you said, it's so easy and it's point-and-click wizard-driven that you can say your work office or your work connection is a work connection. We'll change the advanced firewall feature set inside of Windows to adapt to a work environment. If you're at home, it will change the firewall feature set to adapt to a home. Or, again, you've got the public connection if you want to go out and connect at Starbucks, where it will try to lock your machine down as much as possible from any inadvertent errors or attempts to connect in.
Okay. Do you think that we should conclude our conversation about Windows 7 here? Yeah.
Well, like I said, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, really. Everybody's been using it. There's a load of people out there that have demonstrated interest in it. There's loads of resources on it. So the fact that 8 million people downloaded it and 16 million people installed it during the beta phase is proof enough that, you know, the statement Microsoft have made this time is that they want to get it right. We all know that there were some teething experiences, shall we say the least, with Vista. And with Windows 7, we want to get it right. So as an end user, if there's questions, Microsoft has created Microsoft Answers, which I know yourself and myself have been forum moderators of it. You can get the answers you need. If you're an IT professional, there's the Springboard series, which you and I are both members of, Microsoft.com/Springboard, which you can get resources to. There's a load of resources, and the reason that Windows 7, like you said, has been so successful, or the reason that people are accepting it, is because it's actually being driven by the public this time and not by Microsoft. Vista was pushed onto us because that's what people from Microsoft thought the public wanted, whereas this time they've actually come out to you and I, to the people who use the software, and they've said, what is it that you want, and tried to make it more successful for us. You've also seen, as far as the public launch goes, people are actually saying, Windows 7, I'm a PC, and I helped to make Windows 7. That's because we've been given the input this time. We've been allowed to make the feedback and make it so successful. Obviously, you must enjoy it. Like I said, my mum uses it, you know, and she's one of the most difficult users I've ever found. So it is successful, and again, like I said, yes, there's always going to be a couple teething issues, but it does work, and it does what it says on the tin.
Okay, thank you, Justin, for being with us today here in TechEd Berlin.
Thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure.